Sorry, I cannot see the... Okay. Okay, let's register and then I will send. Okay?
That's okay.
You're live. Okay. Okay, welcome to this webinar of November 8th, the traditional webinar of European Membrane Society that we have since 2020 for having experts in membrane area, so membrane size and membrane technology, giving a specific overview of their research and their activity. This time, Thijs Peter is our guest. He is a senior research scientist and project manager at the Department of Sustainable Energy Technology at SINTEF Industry in Norway. He graduated as a PhD from the Technical University of Eindhoven in 2005 within the field of process development, particularly membrane-assisted esterification reaction. His research interest spans from process chemistry, membrane technology, hydrogen production, CO2 capture, energy efficiency, and to gas separation technology. He has more than 80 publications in international peer-reviewed journals, contributed with 13 book capture, and has more than 20 conferences participation. And so I'm pleased to leave you the floor. Today's seminar is membrane for CO2 capture and blue hydrogen production. Okay, see you.
Yes, Elena, thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Thijs Peters, Senior Scientist at SINTEF Industry in Oslo. I will today tell something about membranes for CO2 capture and blue hydrogen production, with a specific attention to what kind of activities we have at SINTEF. But in the beginning, I would like to shortly introduce SINTEF. What is SINTEF and what do we work with? SINTEF is a research institute based in Norway. We are one of Europe's largest independent research organizations. More than 2,000 employees, and during every year we conduct up to 7,000 different projects for close to 3,200 different clients. The turnover is around 4 billion Norwegian kroner, which, if you want to have it in euro, you have to more or less divide it by 10. We contribute with around 6,000 publications. The people that work in our company, we have 80 different nationalities, and the turnover is also quite international. 7 out of 10 of our employees are researchers, which means that it's quite heavily on the research side. 61 of them, they have actually a PhD. 36 of the employees are female, and actually 31% of our employees, they come from abroad, so they are not Norwegian. I'm actually from the Netherlands myself. The vision of SINTEF is technology for a better society, and our 2,000 people, they work with a lot of different fields like industry and construction, energy, digitalization, food, mobility, climate and environment. And we are subdivided in different institutes. I myself, I work in SINTEF Industry. That's also where most of the membrane work is taking place. As I said, we are an independent research institute, and close to 90% of our income is from an open competition, which means that we only get 10% of our basic funding we get from the state. So all the rest, what we do, we have to win. We have to either to write project proposals or to get contracts with industry. So 35% of our income is coming from Norwegian industry, 30% is coming from typically Norwegian research projects, 10% coming from European Union projects, and international sales is 6% here. As I said, the basic grant is only 8%, and in most of our projects, we collaborate with other people. So we collaborate with the university, we collaborate with industry, typically then in Horizon 2020 project, for example. We are an independent research institute and we are not for profit. And the money that we make, we somehow invest it again into laboratories, but also in internal projects that we generate knowledge in, that we then again can approach the companies with for projects. So for example, over the last 10 years, we have invested around 1.5 billion Norwegian kroner in projects and laboratories, but also scientific equipment. This is around 150 million euro. This is SINTEF, so I will then continue with the scientific part of the presentation. So membranes for CO2 capture and blue hydrogen production. What kind of activities we have at SINTEF? With respect to membranes, there are a lot of different membrane types, and we basically work with most of them. You can subdivide them into membranes for post-combustion CO2 capture, which basically are polymeric CO2 selective membranes, which are selective for CO2 over nitrogen that are applied typically in the stage where you remove CO2 from a flue gas. Then we have a lot of work on pre-combustion membrane systems. They can be either polymeric, typically high temperature metallic membranes, but also ceramic photoconducting membranes integrated in a pre-combustion approach. And then we also have some work on membranes relevant for oxyfuel, both polymeric but also ceramic high temperature oxygen conducting membranes. It's not a large field. It is not a part of the scheme, but we also work on polymeric membranes for CO2 methane separation, for example, to remove CO2 and or H2S from natural gas. This is an overview that shows the different membrane types and what are the main materials, the temperature range, what kind of transport mechanism which is involved, how the CO2 is getting through, so what is the pressure differential, and in what kind of applications. So I will focus the data presentation on the dense polymer membranes, the dense metallic membranes, and the dense ceramic, where of course the polymeric membranes, they are typically operated below 120 degrees, relevant for CO2 nitrogen and CO2 hydrogen or hydrogen CO2 separations. The dense metallic, it's typically operated between 300 and 600 degrees, where the materials are palladium and its alloys, for example, palladium copper and palladium gold. And the dense ceramic are typically metal oxides, where either the oxygen or the proton are conducted through a solution diffusion mechanism. I will start with the polymeric membranes, where the gas transport happens in the free volume available within the polymeric matrix. This polymeric matrix can either be made of a glassy or a rubbery polymer. Depending on the material, they can be selective, for example, for CO2 over methane, oxygen over nitrogen, hydrogen over CO2. And as probably many of you will know, there exists a trade-off relation between permeability and selectivity, shown in this Robertson plot, where typically the low permeable membrane materials show a high selectivity, and the high permeable materials show a lower selectivity. And these lines, they show the trade-off for the different gas pairs. Of course, in membrane development, all the research is focusing towards getting a membrane material which is a high permeable, but also still shows a decent selectivity. So for polymeric membranes, relevant for CO2 capture, where CO2 is typically removed from the flue gas, the polymer needs to be selective for CO2 over nitrogen. Here, the membrane typically is made of polyethers, so polyethylene glycol or polyethylene oxide rubbers that have a specific affinity between CO2 and the ether group constituting the ethers. This means then that it's highly soluble for CO2 over nitrogen, and in case it also has a high diffusivity, it becomes permeable for CO2 in a selective manner over nitrogen. Another polymeric family is the polymers with high free volume, for example PIMs. Those are glassy structures that ensure a very high permeability over CO2, but unfortunately coupled with sometimes a quite limited selectivity. Another polymer family are the polyamines, which normally is a polymer material relevant for facilitated transport membranes. These are hydrophilic membranes that exploit the specific chemical reaction between CO2 and the amine groups that constitute the membrane, which means that you need water vapor. You need to humidify the membrane up to very high relative humidities for the CO2 to permeate through the membrane. And then the amine groups can either be fixed inside the polymer matrix, but it can also be that the membrane material in itself contains a mobile carrier that reacts with the CO2 through the membrane in itself. The disadvantage of these facilitated transport membranes is carrier saturation that normally happens at a very high CO2 partial pressure. Basically, the capacity of the mobile carriers or the amine groups that are present within the membrane, they are completely saturated with CO2, and even higher CO2 partial pressure on the feed side will not enhance the CO2 flux even more. And you also have polymeric membranes that are relevant for hydrogen CO2 separations for pre-combustion schemes. So where either the membrane is hydrogen selective, typically made of a material called polybenzyl imidazole. This is a high temperature stable glassy polymer showing very good hydrogen selective features towards CO2. Polyimides is another polymer material, in this case a glassy one, that typically inhibits very good hydrogen selectivity over CO2 at relatively low temperatures. For example, in this scheme here, high selectivity over CO2 up to 40, and to achieve high temperature CO2 stability, these are mixed with inorganic particles. When they then can be used up to 150 degrees, also then increasing the hydrogen permeability while still maintaining a very decent hydrogen CO2 selectivity. The reverse selective membranes, the CO2 over hydrogen selective, then again needs to be facilitated transport. They can be made out of polyethers. The PEG or PEO are rubbery polymers with a specific affinity between CO2 and the ether group. And the polyamines that are again the facilitated transport membranes that needs to operate under high humidity. These are then hydrophilic membranes exploiting again the specific reaction between CO2 and the amine groups. And these, under some conditions, can be stable up to 150 degrees. If you then have a very good polymeric material, transferring this into a working membrane is the next challenge. So these materials, they need to be deposited as an ultra thin coating on top of a porous support. The polymer in itself needs to be prepared in a decent size, so to allow for large manufacturing of membrane areas, but also preventing the decrease of performance over time. So the chemical stability and physical stability needs to be well. The supports that needs to be used, they need to be highly permeable, because otherwise you can see, for example, in the graph to the right, that highly permeable membrane materials, the permeability decreases if the support in itself becomes limiting for gas transport. Afterwards, the membrane needs to be integrated in a process. Normally, a one-stage membrane process with polymeric membranes is typically not enough to reach target of permeate purity and recovery simultaneously. And then normally the membrane is employed within different stages, and then possibilities are very, very large. For example, in the first option here, the permeate stream is again fed to the feed side of the second membrane process. So then the wait a moment.
We have at the moment a technical problem, so I think please wait. We will solve as soon as possible. Okay, we will wait again for Thijs to come in studio. Okay. Sometimes happens. I think that if Thijs will not come here, probably we can stop the session and restart again, or just let's see if he's answering. Okay, so another option is that we will stop here, but we will not have the question and answer time. Another option is to send. Okay, it's appearing again.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. We will wait.
Oh,
yes.
The whole PC shut down.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. So I'm calling you from my phone.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, don't worry. This is the beauty of online, of live, I have to say.
Yes, so. But it's a bit stupid that people are waiting now. But
yes, but we are online, so don't worry. I think people anyway will wait for a while. It's the first time that happens, but don't worry. Just as soon you are available, please just insert again the PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's turning on.
Okay, good, good.
Until which slide did you see it? No.
the number. It was, just let me see. When you were speaking about the polymeric membranes, process integration, single stage, and yeah. Okay, Thijs, don't worry. I think we just can start again. Explain that you were summarizing a little bit the state of the art of membranes for CO2. So you were giving an overview of all membrane, and also you were starting now to give information about processes. Yes. Now, please present. Increase present and put the PowerPoint again. Okay. If you click on present, then you can just add again the PowerPoint and we can restart again. We have just some minutes break, don't worry. Please unmute your microphone. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
everything
that's
okay.
That's
I think you can go a little bit better. It was not. Yes, here. We were in the previous slide.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Previous slide.
Yeah, but I'll probably
Okay.
just continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry for the technical issues. These things can happen. I continue here. So I showed in the previous slide that there typically can exist many different process integration schemes. And these has to be identified from case to case. For example, for a cement plant, the integration is typically different than for a coal-fired power plant, for example, or from CO2 capture from on board of a vessel. As an example, I've here the typically traditional two-stage membrane integration for CO2 capture from a coal-fired power plant, where the flue gas is entering the first stage of the membrane process. CO2 is being removed through the membrane and then being sent to a second stage, where the purity through the second membrane stage is enhanced, and also the recovery. So in that case, you can obtain, depending on the membrane areas in the different processes, a very good purity together with the recovery of the CO2. Another option is the typically air sweep case from the MTR membrane process, where the flue gas from the boiler being sent to the first membrane stage. CO2 is being removed through it, while the retentate stream is being sent to the retentate stream. In this case, is being sent to a second membrane module, which is applying an air as a sweep, which is then being sent back to the boiler, so that the CO2 content in the flue gas is being enhanced. The CO2 on the permit side is being liquefied, while the off gas of the liquefier is then again sent to a third membrane stage, making a CO2 recycle stream here. The retentate of the third membrane process is being recycled to the flue gas feed. and then the retentate stream of the second membrane process, that is the treated flue gas. And in this case, you can typically get CO2 capture ratios up to 90% and a high purity on the CO2 after the liquefaction stage. So what is the status of the demonstration? What are the main players of polymeric membranes? That is obviously from many membrane technology research in the US. They have performed 1 or 2 years ago a large demonstration at the test center Mongstad in Norway, where they tested a slipstream of 800 to 2,500 cubic meter an hour with their MTR membranes. That is the picture showing here. And at the moment, they are building a 10 megawatt electric membrane system at the Wyoming Integrated Test Center, where they are going to capture 100 ton per day of CO2. There are also many other companies that are now commercializing polymeric membranes for CO2 capture. There is a company in Germany called Cool Planet Technologies that at the moment are demonstrating membrane technology at the Holcim cement plant in Germany, and they are now also scaling up the. I think their membranes are based on polyactive, originally developed at Helmholtz in Germany, and they are scaling up their membrane technology towards 6,000 ton per annum of CO2. Two other membrane companies that are in a fast manner commercializing and upscaling their technology is compact membrane separation in the US and alkaline carbon capture here in Norway. Alkaline carbon capture is a company that was established 2 to 3 years ago to commercialize the CO2 membrane technology developed at the NTNU over the last 20 years. They are adapting commercially available hollow fibers with a patented selective layer to become highly CO2 selective and permeable. Also, this patented layer uses water vapor, so it's a facilitated transport membrane, and it uses the water vapor in the exhaust gas to selectively bind the CO2, producing a highly efficient transport across the membrane. It's a company that established 2 to 3 years ago, but they are rapidly commercializing, but also building their knowledge further. And they have many different projects going on. For example, a standard lithium pilot in the US, where the 90% recovery of the CO2 is efficient, and initial 300 ton per annum of CO2 is being captured, which is going to be upscaled to 3,000 ton per annum CO2 capture from a gas-fired boiler with only a limited CO2 concentration of 2 to 3%. At the moment in Sweden, they have a pilot plant also capturing CO2, 90% CO2 from a lime kiln emission, which is a much higher CO2 concentration of 16 to 20%. And recently, they also announced a cooperation with Andritz, where a new test rig will be installed. So what does SINTEF do in all of this? We contribute with innovative membrane materials, typically relatively low TRL scale. In the pictures over here, you see some recently published articles where novel membrane materials were developed. We contribute quite a bit on performance evaluation within the projects that we have ourselves, but also for companies that come to us for third-party verification of their membrane technology. And then we typically evaluate the material properties as a function of feed composition, temperature, pressure, different humidification levels, and especially also can test the effect of contamination of the flue gas, for example, on the membrane performance. The picture here, you see some of our lab equipment. And we also have people that work on process design and work on integrated techno-economic assessment of membrane integrated processes. These are some examples of different investigations that we have performed over the last couple of years. For example, for polymeric CO2 selective membranes, we have investigated the durability of them while they're being exposed to different levels of SO2, which is typically a contaminant in flue gas. And within a period of around 1500 hours, we have systematically varied the amount of SO2 between 100 and 400 ppm within the synthetic flue gas, which is being fed to the membrane process. Another work topic that we have worked a lot with is CO2 methane separation. So membranes relevant for natural gas sweetening, where we have tested the effect of not only trace levels of H2S, but up to very high concentrations of H2S, in this case 5% of H2S in a mixed CO2 methane synthetic natural gas at 20 bar and 50 degrees to see the effect of the contaminant on the membrane performance. Another work that I would like to mention is the IPOS membrane upscaling, which was done in a former European project called Genesis, where together with the University of Twente and CTI, membrane company in France, and Funcionano, the polypos IMID membranes that originally were developed in the University of Twente were upscaled from the originally size disc membranes towards single channel modules, which was the start of the Genesis project, up towards multi-channel membranes, which was at the end of the Genesis project in 2021. Here you see the cross-section of the single channel membranes, where the very thin IPOS membrane layer, which is made by interfacial polymerization, is applied on top of the asymmetric membrane support, constituting of an alpha lumina and typically a gamma lumina intermediate layer. The actual IPOS layer you don't see in this picture, but it's around 100 nanometer thick. And the main result of this work was that actually the performance of the multi-channel membranes represented very well the performance that were obtained on the disc membranes at the start of the project. Even the permeance of the tubular membranes, they were larger compared to the disc membranes because of the much lower support resistance that was obtained in the optimized tubular supports. Also in that project, we tested quite thoroughly the hydrothermal long-term stability, because the hydrothermal stability was a concern for those polypos IMID membranes, because at the typically temperature of operation, which is 200 to 250 degrees, in the presence of high temperature steam, the concern was that this could revert the amidization reaction, thereby destroying the selective layer. So for that sake, we conducted a long-term where membranes were tested at high temperature and high pressure, exposing it to different levels of high temperature steam, up to 250 degrees, up to 10%. And I won't go into details for the pictures here, but the results show that even within high temperature steam, up to 10 volume%, the membrane show an exceptional stability. We basically do not see any decline in performance. Another membrane type that I would like to focus on is the ceramic membrane systems, where membranes are either selected for oxygen or to protons. So the ceramic membranes for air separation, they are then producing oxygen for oxygen combustion process, but also for syngas production. And the protoconducting membranes, where we have worked a lot together with a company called Costech Membrane Sciences. They are relevant for hydrogen production from natural gas with integrated CO2 capture, but they could also be applied from natural gas to aromatics together with the production of hydrogen. And for that, there is established a pilot production line for membranes within the SINTEF facility. I'd like to focus then on the proton membrane reformer, which is an integrated high temperature membrane process for combined hydrogen production with CCS, where the in situ removal of hydrogen shifts the equilibrium towards the hydrogen side, and thereby, the moment you remove a lot of the hydrogen, you convert all the methane, you get a very high CO2 yield. The nice thing of this is that the membrane process even compresses the hydrogen because it's compressed electrochemically, and the heat that produces is then in situ supplied for the endothermic SMR reaction. Last year, this process was upscaled towards a whole stack. The previous results were just on a small membrane cell of 6 centimeter long. Well, this is now consists of a whole stack, where this is a series of 6 barrels, so 6 times 6 tubes, where the gas is being fed on the inlet here and then transported as in a U-turn towards the outlet, and then the heat that is basically needed at the inlet of the process, where a lot of the endothermic reaction is taking place, is supplied by the outlet part of the reactor, where most of the heat is being generated because of the hydrogen removal through the membrane in itself, through the ferroelectric operation. This is a process that can be used both on natural gas and on biogas, and it's even being tested for the production of pure hydrogen from ammonia. For this, we have established, together with Costec, a unique infrastructure. So a clean room facility for the manufacturing of ceramic membranes, where the extrusion, the coating, but also the sintering, all of it is being done in a clean room environment. And the most of the experiments, the gas separation experiments, also in the presence of the contaminants, being done in a special gas laboratory, where we then can use the poisonous gases like H2S, SO2, and ammonia. The last membrane process that myself have worked mostly on is high temperature metallic membranes for hydrogen separation. Palladium is a material that is capable of dissociating hydrogen on its surface, and then atoms are being transported through it. In case the palladium in itself is defect-free, you in principle can produce high purity hydrogen directly, up to 99.99%. This is also a high temperature membrane process, and it's typically operating temperatures between 300 and 600 degrees. Differently than many of the others, SINTEF produces membranes by magnetron sputtering. We also work then a lot on the performance evaluation of the membranes that we produce. One of the key here is that a palladium membrane is normally not just a pure palladium membrane. It constitutes of an alloy, and then depending on the alloy concentration, the alloy type, you can tune the stability of the membrane, both in terms of the thermal stability, but also the stability against contaminants. And we have worked together with a company called Hydrogen Memtech on the upscaling of this membrane technology. SINTEF patents are now being licensed to them. When membranes that are produced at SINTEF, they were being tested in a skid prepared by a Norwegian company called Rennes New Energy, which was then integrated on the side stream, a syngas-like side stream at the methanol plant in Norway in Gjelberodden. Then the membranes were being tested over a long time in the syngas environment. Most of the issues related to metallic membranes, they are related to lifetime. It's a high temperature membrane process, so you have to make sure that the membrane behaves in a stable manner for a long time at these temperatures of interest, so up to 600 degrees. And then normally what we see is that there is a selectivity decrease, especially at the higher operating temperatures. and also the stability against contaminants, which is an issue. Another issue or another challenge that can be solved through proper module design is that palladium membranes, they have so high hydrogen flux that actually the gas phase becomes limiting for permeance. So the hydrogen struggles more or less to get to the membrane surface. Here you see typically effect of contaminants, where we exposed palladium silver membranes in this case to different levels of H2S. And there you can see that depending on the H2S level, you either are in the reversible adsorption range or in the range where sulfides are being formed, and that should be prevented. So irrespectively, if the membrane is exposed to H2S for a long time, many days, or only for 10 minutes, basically the palladium membrane is destroyed if it's exposed to more than 10 ppm of H2S. This is an important information for process integration. While if the membrane is exposed to lower concentration of H2S, so low in the ppm or even as low as in the ppb level, the flux is inhibited, but still it can be completely reversible. This, as I mentioned, this was done for palladium silver membranes, but you could reduce the H2S inhibition by proper alloying, for example, with gold. And in a previous project, we tested a lot of different alloys based on palladium silver, but also based on palladium copper, to check which alloys have a better H2S resistance, but also which alloys can be improved in terms of flux. Then we found out that especially the palladium gold or the palladium silver gold, it has a very decent flux, while it prevents the formation of bulk sulfides. So the palladium gold and palladium silver gold is an attractive alloy to be used for high temperature hydrogen separation processes with palladium membranes. Also the longer term stability. Basically what happens that when you operate palladium membranes at a very high temperature, you get grain growth. And then we saw that depending on the temperature, but also on the flux that is being generated, you either can operate the membrane in a very stable manner, but if you stretch it too much in terms of the temperature, you get a pinhole formation. And then by a post-process characterization of the membrane, we saw that hydrogen cavities were formed along the grains that over time were grown together, and then pinholes were being formed. And this can also be prevented by proper alloying of the membrane. As I mentioned, this palladium alloy membrane technology, it's now going towards industrial application, and we work together in a company that is now licensing the technology from Sintef, and they are commercializing it. So typically here you see a membrane module that they are producing and selling, and we still, Sintef still supports them in their development, and we work together with them on the optimization of the material performance, but also towards the extension of the use of palladium in hydrogen production from ammonia. So conclusions. Sorry for the interruption when the PC crashed, but we have many different activities on many different membrane types. We have the expertise and equipment available for the preparation and characterization of many older types, membrane types, gas separation membrane types available. And we do a lot of testing of membranes and realistic operating temperatures, realistic operating conditions and temperatures, including contaminants. So some acknowledgements, maybe not so interesting, and maybe there are some questions that I could answer.
Okay, Thank you. At the end, everything went well, and the presentation is quite interesting, since we have a really large overview of not only research, but also how this research is applied. And it's quite interesting that you have so many, how to say, interaction with industry, and they ask you also and they are also commercializing the membrane module materials and also processes. In this sense, I would like to ask you, what do you think will be the future? I mean, we know that referring to membrane materials is quite important to have new performing materials, but sometimes they are not so much used in industry, and the process is start to be really important. So, how to say, general question is, how do you think that new materials could really enter in the real world, not only how to say research, and how much is the effect at the end will be the effect on the future of processes?
I think what is important now is that membrane should be demonstrated on a much larger scale, not just in the lab environment, but they should be demonstrated on a much larger scale, so that the industry in itself gets the confidence that this is something that is working. CO2 capture membranes, they have been around for a long time. MTR will demonstrate the technology at a very, very large scale in the US the coming years, but still CCS is not a technology which is commercial. There are not many places where C2 can be stored. It is a climate solution, of course, and it needs to be demonstrated. So I think through, just coming back to your question, through proper demonstration, I think membranes can become more commercial than they are now. At least the CO2 capture membranes. And then the moment CO2 capture membranes are commercial, then novel materials can be introduced. But then it should be in cooperation with the companies that are commercializing current technology. I think it's very challenging for somebody that is working in a lab to get a material out in the field. It needs to be together with a membrane company.
Yes, but I think this was also the logic of the European, how to say, Commission, not? And this was also the logic in the several, how to say, projects. But on the other side, if you want to make really basic research to discover new material, sometimes it's also difficult to go directly to ITRL project at the end.
Yeah, I think it's important when people are working on a new technology or a new material, they should already from the start have the large scale application in mind, because you cannot develop a material which you cannot upscale quantity wise. It needs to be a material that is possible to upscale, that is possible to manufacture. So somehow already the manufacturability should be a part of research at a low TRL level, because otherwise you know that it will never reach a high TRL level.
Okay, this is clearly valid not only for CO2 but also for energy at the end. For hydrogen, sorry, at the end.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. We have not so many, I'd say, information referring. No, nobody's asking. So I think that okay. No, we have now two. Is Lore Annes. You mentioned you test for contaminants, H2, SO2, and X, and then she said, does the exposure mean that the membrane are exposed during the measurement, added to the gas stream, or they're exposed to the contaminants in between measurements?
Typically, we have them present in the feed stream towards the membrane. So H2S is for example, available in a pre-mixed manner together with C2 and methane, and then we just feed that pre-mixed gas feed towards the membrane, or in case of flue gas membranes, C2 nitrogen selective membranes, then we can add different levels of SO2 towards the feed, which is then entering the membrane module. So these are in situ membrane performance studies in the presence of contaminants. It's not exposure in an autoclave and then testing the membranes again, if that answers the question.
Okay. Okay, so if we can wait a little bit, also if other people would like to have new information. Anyway, we are more or less in time, so, and also the number of participants was in average. So I think that if no other questions are, okay, Lauren is just thanking you. So I would also like to thank you for your participation and your, and
sorry for the technical issues. I don't know what.
Okay, but it's not our work. I mean, this is just the kind of support that we give to the society give also because anyway we have on YouTube and are always useful. And so with this, I would like to thank you. Thank you all the participants, and let's meet to the next December webinar on 6th of December. So thank you again. Bye.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.